gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's December the 18th, 2023. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined this morning by our managing editor, Matt Shodell, and Stephen Wagner, as we discuss the news of the day, presented today by Caneswear, your holiday destination for all your Miami Hurricanes merchandise needs. You can visit their store at 2655 South University Drive in Davie if you live in South Florida, or you could shop at Caneswear.com 24 hours a day. Get in there quick. You're running out of time to load up on gear, stocking stuffers, whatever it may be for the holiday season. Get on over to Caneswear in one way, shape, or form today and finish off your holiday shopping. We are finishing off covering this Miami recruiting class. We are officially in what I have affectionately called for decades the fog of war. You take a look at Matt Shodell. He looks like he's been in a fog for sure. Stephen Wagner, who put in like about a 22-hour day yesterday. He's certainly feeling a little foggy. And quite frankly, we are in general a little foggy on what some of these kids are doing that are potentially going to be in this recruiting class. There are several that are holding out on committing. We think they are going to commit here this week. I'm going to go through the whole class for you guys today on this show. If you're not yet a subscriber to CaneSport.com, we have a signing day special for you guys to come on over and take advantage of. You can get $1 for the first month. You can get 50% off an annual subscription your first year. Now is your time. We're going to give you a teaser look at the class today, but we will be discussing this for days on the message boards. We will have extensive coverage of signing day. Come on over, become part of our community. Your subscriptions are what allow us to do every single day on our website, on this show, and all other parts in between. So we would love to have you as part of our CaneSport.com community. Today is the day to make that move. But guys, before I get into the specifics of the signing class, and I'm going to give everybody an update on where things stand. Just in general, Stephen, your thoughts now as we sit here 48 hours before signings start coming in, just where the Miami Hurricanes stand in general.
Yeah, I think Miami is really solid with the majority of commits who are in this class, with one really, really major glaring exception, and that is Kevin Riley, who took his official visit to Alabama over this weekend. I think that's kind of a situation that makes everyone anxious because, going into the weekend, I thought he was maybe like 60-40 or in favor of Miami, or heck, even 50-50 was kind of my gut feeling on this. A little bit closer to the actual weekend itself. But anytime that Nick Saban walks into a room with a recruit that you already have committed, you kind of hold your breath, because Nick Saban's the kind of guy who demands that kind of attention. He has that kind of recruiting presence. And anytime that he asks a recruit to take an official visit to his school the final weekend, or the final recruiting weekend of the year, heck, it's pretty tough for a recruit to just come out and outright turn that down. That's difficult. And so it definitely wasn't a surprise that Kevin actually did end up taking that visit, even though it was looking like earlier in the year he might not end up taking this visit. But as we just said, he ended up taking this visit after all. Still trying to see what the situation is going to be there, and just exactly if we can get a little bit of clarity in this fog of war. And then there were a bunch of other guys that Miami had on campus for this weekend's official visits. That was Armando Blunt, Jordan Lyle, Xavier Lucas, and Adarius Hayes. All of them are currently committed elsewhere. Blunt's a 5-star committed to Florida State. Hayes a 4-star committed to Florida. Xavier Lucas, a 3-star, committed to Wisconsin, and then Jordan Lyle, a 4-star, committed to Ohio State. This was a really, really, really big weekend for Miami. I mean, like, this was absolutely massive. I know, we've been a little bit heavy on the RPM predictions lately. And a lot of this stuff, honestly, man, I mean, I really am feeling good about it. I really am sticking by this. We put in RPMs for Miami to go ahead and flip Armando Blunt from Florida State after this weekend. Man, I still stand by that. Xavier Lucas, heck, I still think Miami's going to get Xavier Lucas too. Jordan Lyle, he's been a little bit quieter coming out of this weekend. That's another guy we're still trying to get a little bit of intel on. But man, I mean, there's just this gut feeling that tells me I really do think that he's going to end up flipping to Miami. And then Darius Hayes, there were a lot of really good vibes around him. I mean, the buzz was very palpable. The buzz was good. I mean, like, heck, like, I think there's legitimate reason for Miami fans to have some level of optimism with all 4 of these guys. I mean, this was a really, really big visit weekend, and Miami did a pretty freaking good job. There was a lot of optimism with a lot of people who we spoke to, just kind of trying to gauge how things went. Heck, there were even some players who were trying to recruit their own guys over. You think of Ryan Mack, the St. Thomas cornerback, trying to recruit Jordan Lyle to flip over from Ohio State. That's his teammate. That's a guy who he's grown up with, a kid that he's known since he was a child. He'd been pushing him to flip to Miami for a while. I mean, Zaquan Patterson was trying to get in the mix too. You saw Zaquan trying to say, "Oh yeah, man, I think we can go ahead and pull this guy. I think we can go ahead and pull that guy." I mean, heck, Zaquan went full recruiter mode in and of himself. I mean, like, it's crunch time, and Miami's getting serious about building a class. And man, I think that there's reason for optimistic anxiety about what's happening in Coral Gables, because there are 2 days left until signing day. You've got today, or all of today, all of Tuesday, and then Wednesday. The papers are actually going to be signed. I think there's reason for Cane fans to have a little bit of optimistic anxiety about this.
All right, let me go through the board. Because I know people are looking to have a nice snapshot of where things stand. So I'm going to go through the board. I'm not, we're not going to be able to go in detail on every single kid. Obviously, we'd be here for hours. But let me start at quarterback. And Miami has a firm commitment from Judd Anderson. That has been in place for many, many months now. A very good-looking prospect. They are still trying to get Cedric Bailey from Hollywood Chaminade. We don't see them giving up on that until the very end. Cedric Bailey has been showing an inclination that he's going to stick with NC State, but you never say never on a local South Florida kid until the last minute. So we'll be watching that all the way into Wednesday morning. But, of course, the interesting thing at quarterback is the 2 transfers. Miami in the running for arguably the 2 top transfer quarterbacks on the market in Washington State's Cam Ward, Kansas State's Will Howard. As we went into the overnight period last night, no verdict on either one of them. I was able to confirm that Miami is still very much engaged on both fronts. There were some rumors yesterday that Will Howard had made a silent commitment to USC. At this point in time, we do not necessarily believe that is true, but we are monitoring it every minute of the day to see what happens there. Not really sure how Miami's going to navigate this. I mean, they have to try to get Cam Ward to make a decision. The Cam Ward camp, Matt Shodell, you've been in touch with them on multiple occasions over the weekend. They do not seem to be in a great hurry, but Miami obviously is in a great hurry because they would like to know if Cam Ward is going to Coral Gables. I'm not saying they would turn him down a week from now, but if they're not going to win that, they kind of need to know, don't they?
Yeah, you'd think. Miami fans are already moving on to quarterback number 3. Who's the third option? We're not getting either of these two. I mean,
the third option that we know of.
People don't understand that this is how Mario Cristobal operates. He operates on the edge of what other people would want to be comfortable doing. He doesn't get uncomfortable doing this stuff. If they wind up without a quarterback, he will go back to the drawing board and look for a quarterback when the dead period's over January 12th or whatever it is, and keep reevaluating and find somebody. If he doesn't find somebody who he likes, he'll wait until after spring ball. I mean, this is just what he does. He's not going to settle. It's not what he likes to do. If somebody tells him I'm not coming, he moves on to the next, but he's going to wait. If Cam Ward says I'm not announcing until after Christmas, don't rush me, he's not going to go to a number 2 option who's not as good for this offense, and the other thing,
option. He's got a number 2 option.
Right, but he's not going to go to it if the number 1 option is still there. I mean, that's just what he does. Same thing as an
He's
offensive
coordinator.
He's not going to tell his top offense coordinator choice, well, I need to go to the second best guy on the board, so you tell me your answer. Like, he's going to wait, and whatever you got to do to try and get that top option, you do. And I think Cam Ward's the top option. I believe that. And I think
they would go to Will Howard. If they need to go to Will Howard, I think they will go.
Knowing Mario the way I do, I don't think so. I think he's going to wait for the best option until that option tells him no. And guess what? If Will Howard commits to USC, who cares? Miami can come in and offer him an extra $1 million, and a commit means nothing. He's not enrolling. They don't sign like a recruit does. They just enroll, and he's not enrolling until January. These commitments mean nothing. So whatever. It doesn't matter if Will Howard made a silent commitment, whether he promised his firstborn to the USC football facility. It doesn't matter what he did. None of it matters until he enrolls. So, but the bigger and most interesting thing to me is what is going to happen to this Miami roster when enrollment hits in January, because they have to be at 85 when everyone enrolls in January. And right now they're at 65. You can look at our current roster tracker. They're at 65. That includes the 2 transfers that already committed. They have 26 commits. I think they get 3 more. Unlike Steven, I'm not as optimistic on the running back who's the Ohio State commit. I think they get 3 more, so that's 29 commits. They're going to get 2 more. They're going to get Zach Carpenter, I believe that. They're going to get a quarterback for I assume for the spring. We'll plan for the spring. We'll hope for the spring. So you're looking at 30 plus more people, which puts your roster over 95. Okay, your roster is going to be over 95. So 10 players, and you guys can go this morning and look at our eligibility tracker. 10 of those players on that eligibility tracker with eligibility to return will not be on this team come February 1st. They just won't be, which is fine, because that's the nature of the beast. Like, I feel bad for the guys who are told, sorry, bye-bye, we got better guys than you now. But that's what this has become. It's a business, and you can feel sorry for student athletes who maybe wanted to get their degree and knew they weren't the greatest player on the team and loved Miami, and they have to leave now. It's sad. It's not great. But if you're just a football fan, you don't care about that, then this is probably what's best, because you're replacing talent that's not good enough with talent that is better, according to Mario Cristobal and his coaching staff. And if you believe they're good coaches, which I do believe, notwithstanding some game day issues, then this is what is best for the program. But keep an eye on some of these guys that are going to have to just leave the program. There's going to be double digits more that will be purged from this roster.
Can we wait a few days to worry about that?
The same way that I want to be purged from this show. Just suddenly they'll be gone. That's my dream.
Are you okay if we wait a few days before we worry about that too much? I mean, they got to go play the bowl game on the.
That's why they haven't kicked. You know what? That's probably why they haven't kicked them off yet, Gary. I got to tell you, they need a team. There's going to be 10 guys in that bowl game that will not be back.
I understand. This is going to be a big bowl game for some guys. There's going to have to be some cuts made after the bowl game. Some guys will voluntarily cut themselves. But there's going to be some transactions.
Some guys, no, that's not true. Unless they plan on not playing football ever again, if they knew they were going to be kicked off the team, they'd already be in the portal, because the portal window is going to close pretty quick after that bowl game, and they already can't take any more visits. So if they go in the portal tomorrow, they can't take an official visit anywhere. They would have rather have been told this a month ago. It's sad, but you got to do it's business. It is what it is. But don't lie to everyone, Gary, and say, oh, they're probably going to want to leave anyway. No, they already would have wanted to have left by now if they know they're not going to be back.
But there's going to be I'm not counting the exact number of days, but about 10 days or so after the bowl game where guys can go in the portal. They don't have to pick their school.
Yeah, but they can't take any visits. What's the difference?
They're in a 30-day window
Yeah,
right
but
now.
they can't take any visits because the dead
Until-
period.
I know, until January 4th.
Yeah, and then
I
they have like
believe
a week to enroll somewhere. Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
ideal for somebody. It's
Yeah.
look, they can make it work, I guess. Yeah.
Not ideal, but it could be done. There will be some transactions, but I don't think we should worry about that right now. Right now, we're trying to put this current recruiting class to bed. We've got about 48 hours to do it. That doesn't mean Miami has to have all its quarterback issues figured out in the next 48 hours. They don't. Those guys are in the portal and they are available, and they could sign a few weeks down the road if they want to. So Cam Ward's dad, for example, flat told us we will not be rushed, and was pretty adamant about it.
And by the way, let me add, there are some, I should have mentioned this, there are some signees who will not report until the summer. So Miami can maybe get away with keeping a few guys around for the spring, even though it's probably not the right thing to do. But if they wanted to and they're not sure, they could keep probably, what is it, about a handful of guys, Stephen, that aren't signing early from St. Thomas and some schools like that?
Yeah. There's a few kids at St. Thomas who wouldn't be able to enroll early. Anyone from American Heritage wouldn't be able to enroll early. Chaminade Madonna will be able to enroll early. Miami Central will be able to enroll early. I'd need to go down the list.
Yeah, but there's probably 4 or 5 guys, I guess. So maybe they only have to purge 5 or 6 immediately, and then they could purge more after the spring, I guess.
All right, so that's the situation at quarterback. We're monitoring those transfers at pretty much every minute of every day. So as soon as there's breaking news on that front, we will bring it to you at CaneSport.com. Moving to the running back position, the Canes have a commitment from Chris Wheatley-Humphrey. Had a phenomenal year in Broward County, put up monster stats, but we still think that when he gets to college, his most likely position is going to be cornerback, unless Kevin Riley does in fact defect off of this signing class and goes to Alabama. Maybe and Jordan Lyle ends up at Ohio State, and then Miami doesn't have a running back in the class, then Chris Wheatley-Humphrey might be able to stay at running back for a while. But he is a phenomenal athlete, could play on either side of the ball. Be fired up about him. Now, Kevin Riley is an interesting situation because he visited Alabama this weekend, and we were able to get a little intelligence about that situation yesterday. Basically, Kevin Riley's mom would kind of prefer he stay close to home. Kevin Riley would kind of prefer to go away to college. Miami has a better NIL situation for him probably than Alabama. So all this is factoring into his decision. Stephen, you've put a lot of time into covering Kevin Riley through this cycle. Your thoughts on where this thing ends up?
Yeah, so I'd been told that one of the reasons why Kevin liked the idea of playing at Miami was he kind of liked the idea of being able to get away a little bit, go somewhere different for college, explore a little bit. Be an 18, 19, 20, 21, 22-year-old kid living in Miami. That's pretty freaking attractive to a lot of freaking people. In today's day and age of NIL, he understands that he could have some very lucrative opportunities for him in Coral Gables, whether that's through the collective, whether that's through, actual deals that he's able to get around town. There was a lot that Miami had going for him. Not to mention, just the fact that, Mark Fletcher had a really, really stellar freshman year. Miami has shown that they are very willing to play true freshmen at any position if they feel like that gives them the best chance to win. Kevin thinks that he could have a chance to see the field early here. He thinks that he could have a really good career here. He likes Tim Harris. He likes Mario Cristobal. He really likes the offensive line that they're building and kind of the philosophies and the mentality that they teach of, really wanting to pound the ball straight down your opponent's throat behind a big and very good offensive line. I do think that Miami still has, a lot of very solid things they can offer on that front. But on the other hand, I said this to start the show, anytime that Nick Saban walks into a room of a recruit that your school currently has committed to it, I mean, like every fan should kind of hold their breath a little bit, because Nick Saban is absolutely a threat to flip any recruit in America if he comes in and is able to get you on campus the final week of December. I think personally that this could kind of go either way. That's what my gut tells me. That truly is what my gut tells me. Someone asked me on the message board on Thursday, how I felt about the situation. And I said, I think it's kind of 60-40 Miami right now. Then on Friday, I thought about it a little bit more. And I said, maybe it's a little bit closer to 50-50, because I really could see a reality where he ends up being a Cane. I could see a reality where he ends up signing with Alabama. I know, Gary, me and you talked about this on a phone call the other day. There's a possibility that Miami gets both Jordan Lyle and Kevin Riley, gets neither Jordan Lyle or Kevin Riley, or gets either Jordan Lyle or Kevin Riley. I think all of those are very legitimate possibilities. I think that truly can happen. I think right now, we really are in kind of just a wait and see moment, because I don't think that Kevin will have made a final decision, that Kevin made a final decision at the end of his official visit. I do think that this is going to be something that, regardless of which program he ends up leaning toward, it's going to be something that he's going to have to think for about a day or two before he actually comes out and makes this announcement. I do not think that whichever decision he arrives at, it's not going to be something that he just makes kind of on a whim. And that's, I feel like right now that is the biggest Miami commit that we're all kind of keeping our eyes on.
Yeah, well, I talked to my gut too. Hello, gut. We have conversations, right? Just like Steven and his gut.
Yeah, but your gut's like older and bigger and wiser.
Bigger, I know, man. I have a little bit of a problem with that. I agree. I got to work on that a little bit. But my gut is telling me that Kevin Riley has more NIL value to Miami than Alabama. They have a better roster, and they don't just throw money all over the place. And Miami needs an elite running back. They think Kevin Riley can potentially be that. I think he will have a better NIL opportunity at Miami than Alabama. Will that be the deciding factor? It often is. It should be, but it should be in terms of what it usually is. But this one's a little weird because he waited till the last weekend to really seriously consider Alabama. So probably could go either way. We will be on top of this one every minute of the day as we are the quarterbacks. Let's talk about the tight ends real quick. Miami's locked in with Elijah Lofton, a tight end out of Vegas that they think is going to be a really good all-purpose, like H-back type of tight end at Miami, a guy that they can really build a lot of offense around. It'll be interesting to see how that evolves, considering Miami didn't really use the tight end very much this past year for an unknown reason that we've never really heard an explanation of. But Elijah Lofton's a kid that they feel very strongly about. We think he will be the only tight end in this class. Wide receivers, they have commitments from three of them right now: Chance Robinson, Josiah Trader, and Nikar. That's a pretty darn good list. I think Nikar is a real sleeper in this recruiting class, a kid that I expect to come in and make an immediate impact at Miami. He was once committed to Georgia. The Canes were able to steal him away. I have real high hopes for Nikar. Steven, you have watched an awful lot of Chance Robinson and JoJo Trader this year. What's Miami getting with this trifecta of receivers?
Okay, first off, I want to say Nikar is Jacoby George. That's exactly what his comp is. I've talked to a lot of people who all agree with me. Nikar is Jacoby George.
He needs to be better than Jacoby George.
He has a higher ceiling, I believe, than Jacoby George. But to start, I think the experience that Nye is going to get, even if he doesn't get a tremendous amount of playing time his freshman year, and he does have to spend his first year, basically as a backup, I still think that he's going to get a lot of really, really good experience being behind a guy like Jacoby, who, I mean, we've been hearing has been having, a pretty good, who's been having a pretty good bowl offseason. So I think that Nye is a guy who has the potential to be like a game-changing, explosive receiver. I think Chance Robinson, on the other hand, he's kind of a prototypical X. I think Nye Carr is a guy that you line up in the slot. I think Chance Robinson's a prototypical X receiver, big, stocky, sturdy. I think he's going to continue to grow too. He's around 200 pounds right now, maybe 205. So in terms of weight and like actual body size, I don't think he's going to need to get much bigger. However, I wouldn't be surprised if he grows maybe another inch or so, ends up somewhere in that 6'2" to that 6'2.5" range. Really good length, gets a great release off the line of scrimmage. Really tremendous ball skills. I remember I saw him play a game. I think it was against like Dillard or someone like that. And he dropped a ball in the end zone. And I kid you not, I thought to myself, that's literally the first ball that I've seen him drop this season. That's literally the first time I have seen him drop a pass that was absolutely catchable thrown in his general vicinity. I mean, his hands really are as good as they come. I do think that he is going to be tested against corners that he's never really seen before at the next level. And that's actually something that I'm really excited to see Nye Carr do at the All-American Bowl in San Antonio whenever he goes down there, is be able to kind of get these one-on-one opportunities with these other elite, 4-star and 5-star corners that, he will be facing at the next level. But that's kind of just an aside. And then JoJo Trader. Trader's a guy who I think he's one of the higher floor prospects that Miami's going to be getting. I think that he still plays a lot bigger than his size. He has hands that are truly like second to none. He catches literally everything. That's his superpower. He catches literally everything. A couple of concerns that I do have about Trader, though, he still kind of struggles gaining separation from, let's face it, some mediocre defensive backs at best, who were even in his division. This year, we saw him struggle with that at times, and a lot of the times he was beating these guys and winning jump balls over them simply because he could kind of out-athlete them. I'd still like to see him kind of work on his short burst. I'd still like to see him kind of find ways to consistently find space in zone coverages. But still, he's a guy who catches like everything that is thrown to him. This is also the first time that Miami has had three wide receiver commits in the top 125 of the On3 industry ranking, I guess I shouldn't even say the On3 industry ranking because On3 wasn't even around the last time that Miami had three receiver commits ranked in the top 125 because the last time that happened was 2008. That was Randy Shannon's ungodly 2008 recruiting class. So this is going to be, Miami's going to have some offensive talent that they have not had in Coral Gables in quite some time. And that Rhett Lashley, De'Aaron King tandem, we all saw, the potential that Miami could have as an explosive offense. But I think, the aim here is to give Miami a lot more weapons than De'Aaron King and Rhett Lashley had. I felt like a lot of the times, they were kind of, making the most out of a situation that was, okay in terms of the personnel surrounding them. I think Miami is trying to get elite with their offensive personnel because you're going to look at this roster and you're going to see 4-star, 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 5-star, 4-star, 5-star, 5-star, 3-star, just up and down the roster. This is absolutely going to be a top 10 roster in college football with the way that Mario has recruited. And I think that they're absolutely going to have a different level of production and a different expectation on the offensive side of the ball than we've seen in a very long time.
Well, while you were going on and on there, I had another talk with my gut. Okay. And my gut tells me that Nye Carr is going to play a lot as a freshman. So I'm expecting Nye Carr to be a big part of the offense as soon as this year, especially when you factor in Colby Young now, being in the portal and being out of the equation. Miami needs playmakers. I think they're going to count on these freshmen to come in ready to play very early. Let's move on to the offensive line position, where there's 4 commitments, and we think there's going to be a 5th here any minute. The high school kids are Juan Minaya, Nino Francavilla, Markel Bell, who's a JUCO transfer, and Derek Plaz. We don't know. I wouldn't say it's a class that compares to last year when you had, Francisco Malgoa, for example, Javion Cohen coming through the portal, Samson Okinola, but a solid class. And it's going to be supplemented, we believe, in the next 24 hours by an Indiana transfer by the name of Zach Carpenter. Matt Shodell, you've put an enormous amount of time chasing that story the last couple days. Tell us where you think things stand with Zach Carpenter.
His mom said he's going to maybe commit today. That was yesterday. And I've been corresponding with her for a while. Really nice lady, really nice family. But he doesn't want to do interviews. So she said, you can talk to him when he announces his decision, which I guess I wouldn't be talking to him if he wasn't committed to Miami. So I guess that means I'm talking. That means he committed. It means he's committing. No, I'm not spoiling anyone's thunder. I'm just having some fun. But, I do think that he will be Miami's next center. And, the good thing here is I'm just sort of, the whole free agent versus just another guy thing that people want to know how I rate these guys. To me at this point, I'm fine with taking guys who are gone off the roster after a year who are going to start, especially because I think next year they can win 10 games. So 3 of the 4 commits that I think they're going to wind up taking at this point will be starters. That'll be whoever the quarterback is. Zach Carpenter, assuming he comes. CJ Clark already committed, and he'll be a starter. That's 3. The Savion Riley started at Vanderbilt. He has 3 years of eligibility left. I'm not sure he's really a starter, but I think this is another case like what Miami did at cornerback last year, where they just sort of freaked out and they said, we have no numbers, we have no experience, we have no depth at cornerback. And they went up taking 6 cornerbacks out of the portal, 5 cornerbacks, whatever. It was a huge number out of the portal between both periods. And really none of them wound up making a big impact. Some of them are still stuck on the roster. And, I feel like to some extent, this may have happened at safety with Savion Riley. He didn't grade out well. He started at for a very bad program. And yeah, he played in the SEC. He made some plays. But he's not going to just jump off the charts and wow you. I mean, a year ago, he was, I think, a 3-star recruit. It's not like his measurables all of a sudden made him this all-star guy. So I'm hoping, I'm not hoping, but I'm expecting at some point, Miami's going to keep its eye out for more safeties and defensive tackles for that matter, especially if they take, Marley Cook, Middle Tennessee State guy. He's, to me, 1 year left, whatever, but I don't know that he's anything more than a role guy. And, you sort of saw them take a couple of role guy defensive tackles last year also, or defensive linemen. One of them, Campbell, didn't even play, so I guess he redshirted, but is a project. So, I'd like to see them get out of this portal routine because Mario is such a great recruiter of high school talent. I'd like to see them get to the point like what Florida State does, where everyone who they're taking in the portal is basically either starting or, like a Darrell Jackson who couldn't play but is going to be a starter or is starting quality and things like that. They're not just taking guys for depth purposes. Depth purposes to me should be redshirt freshmen, sophomores. Like those are the next wave. I'm not a fan of taking transfer guys who are taking recruit spots just to be depth guys. I know Gary loves it. It's his favorite.
You don't think they've been pretty disciplined in that regard so far?
Gary's favorite thing in the world aside from my stone crabs. And, it's not for me.
They've been pretty disciplined with the portal this year.
It just started. How do you even know? What are you talking about?
I'll reverse. You're right. It's early. Like they could still go nuts.
If they take double-digit portal guys and half them aren't starters, that's not for me. I want every guy they take in the portal to be a starter and a really good player. And so far, they've hit on 3 out of 4 to me, so I'm okay with that. When they get their quarterback, it'll be 3 out of 4. I like both those guys. I'm assuming they're going to get. If they don't get Will Howard or Cam Ward, fans are going to freak out. There'll be crazy negativity, regardless of how great this recruiting class is. And I think it is a great recruiting class that you guys are going to be very happy with come Wednesday. But it's quarterback you, and there's probably, unless Cam Ward magically changes his mind and it really was just all a ploy to get more money, Like, there's not going to be a quarterback on Wednesday when they have this great press conference, and every question is going to be like, what's happening at quarterback? Is Jakari Brown the only guy who's going to be on the roster in the spring? Because there's a rumor Emory Williams won't be ready, which he will be ready. How, and I'm doing an imitation of a particular reporter who nobody will know who it was. But anyway, so that's the problem is Mario's very, look, I mean, this is Mario, he wants a top 5 recruiting class. He wants a quarterback in place who's going to get people excited. And he wants to do press conferences where people are excited, where he's excited and not miserable like he was for most of this past season talking to us. And I just hope that the Miami media, as smart as they are, will have the wherewithal not to be hammering Mario with quarterback questions on Wednesday, which I'm sure they will, instead of just focusing on what's going to be a great recruiting class. And then the quarterback will come when the quarterback comes. Like, I'm not worried about it. Fans are worried about it. And I don't know which one of us is right, but I just try to go to bed at night with a clear mind and a clear conscience, knowing that I forced somebody yesterday to do an interview that didn't want to do an interview. That is not easy to do, but I managed to do it with Mr. Adarius Hayes, who I really like. He's a big fan of mine now, I think, because I called him because that's what I do. I work the phones. Steven and Azubi do the hard work. So I called Mr. Hayes and I said, do you have a couple minutes for you to talk? I identified myself first, of course. I said, this is Gary Ferman from CaneSport. No, I identified myself. And I said, do you have a couple minutes to talk about your Miami visit? To which he responded, I'm not doing interviews. And now, a more experienced and nicer person probably would be like, oh, I'm so sorry to bother you, and hang up the phone and, move on to the next. But not Matt Shodell. Matt Shodell, the annoying, freaky reporter, said, oh, I totally get that. So just checking, are you going to be announcing a decision soon or announcing on Wednesday? I'm announcing on Wednesday. Oh, okay. It's just Miami and Florida, right? Are those the only two, or anybody else going to? Just Miami and Florida. Oh, so what do you do now? How do you figure? He says, well, I'm going to go home and figure it out. I don't really know yet. Who are you going to talk to? Oh, my parents, my coach. I got to start over with the process, whatever. So I don't know if that was against journalistic integrity, and I'm going to get put in purgatory where they put all the journalists, in the afterlife. I don't know. But apparently he was willing to give me enough to write a story. I don't know. Did I do something wrong, Ferman and Wagner? You tell me. I don't know.
You're always doing something wrong. It sounds to me like you duped them.
I'm a terrible reporter. Not a terrible reporter, terrible person. Maybe I'm a good reporter and a terrible person, because you can't be both. You can't be a good person and a good reporter. That is for sure. Because the best reporters, honestly, they break all the rules. There's I'm not going to mention names, but there are some reporters out there who literally will record stuff through bushes, and have done this through bushes, recorded stuff, and then run it. It's just content,
Or what they do, and this one's my favorite, is they find a spot on top of a parking garage across from a practice facility and record video of 2 quarterbacks taking reps in order to determine which quarterback is actually going to be the starter. That one's my favorite.
Well, I don't mind telling you this. I mean, Omar Kelly, who is one of my favorite people and a fantastic reporter, they used to close practices. I think maybe it was Randy Shannon. It was years and years ago, And Omar and I had our racquetball battles, but we were buddies in reporting, and I would not do this. I was not willing to be a rule breaker like he was. So they would shut down practice, and they would make us all go into the media room, which was actually just a closet full of shoes and tennis rackets, and that's not a joke. And he found this spot at the top of the tennis court, which in those days there was no indoor practice facility blocking the view. And if you sit up in the top row of that corner with binoculars, you can watch most of practice. You can see 75% of the practice field. And while we're all sitting there with the stinky shoes and the used tennis rackets, and we're like, oh, Omar must have gone to Starbucks or something, he would be up there with his binoculars watching most of practice. And I call that good reporting. People might say that's a bad person. But you know what? I don't know that reporters should allow people to dictate how they cover things, because if you allow people, and I'm not talking about doing an interview with a high school student athlete, maybe I should have been nicer and been like, okay, I'm not even going to ask you another question. And it was nice of him, at least respond. Because when Steven went up to him, the guy basically, gave him the stiff arm like it was the Heisman Trophy winner and sprinted off. But yeah, he basically did that for real. But so look, Darius was super nice with me, and I do appreciate it. I hope I didn't cross any boundaries. I certainly didn't report anything that was meaningful. I just basically let people know he's announcing on Wednesday, which I don't think it was a shock. So anyway, getting back to when media tell you what to do and what not to do, like back in the day, like when there was that brawl in the Peach Bowl, and I was outside that tunnel watching it, by the way, we were all told we cannot move from a certain area. We were penned into this certain area. You cannot move because you could hear screaming from the Miami locker room down the hallway, and it was probably 20, 30 yards away. And George Million had the wherewithal to not listen because he was an experienced reporter. And at this point, I was a young reporter. I still am young, right? Right, guys? No. And George, was a circular basement, whatever you want to call it, underneath the stadium. And he just circled around the whole opposite way, went around the entire length of the stadium to get beyond where the cordon was, where these media people told us we have to stay. And he was literally waving to us from outside the Miami locker room, listening to everything they were saying and wrote about it. And, that's, to me, that's being a good reporter. So, I don't take no for an answer anymore. And maybe that rubbed off on me with Darius. And maybe some people listening to this will think I shouldn't have done it. But you know what? At the end of the day, I don't like having people tell me
you got the story, right?
You can't do a story. Don't tell me I can't do a story. Fans,
we had the story, so it worked.
Yeah, fans want to know what's going on. And you know what? If I said, "Oh, when are you not saying?" And if he said to me at that point, "Listen, I'm just really not going to be talking," of course, then that's it. But he answered, and so then he asked the next, and he asked the next, and he asked the next, and then you say, "Listen, I really appreciate it," and that's what I said. And I said, "Good luck on Wednesday." I said, "I know you're picking Miami, so it's all fine." And then we hung up.
All right, we're going to actually talk defense here in a minute, other than the 15 minutes the Matt just took to tell you a story.
Oh, can I leave now? I already said everything. I have nothing else. There's nothing left for me to say. I can leave.
So we'll probably skip all Darius Hayes when I go through the defense. But
Darius.
First, going to give you a look at the new CaneSport.
Welcome to CaneSport. New store, new items, same great experience. Family owned and operated since 2010, CaneSport has the latest merchandise from the Miami Hurricanes, Miami Dolphins, Florida Panthers, Inter Miami CF, and more. Come visit us at our store in Davie on University Drive, just south of 595, or online at caneswear.com. CaneSport, the spot Miami fans shop.
All right, I know it's late in the game. You got exactly a week till Christmas, okay? And but I know a lot of you guys out there have not done all your shopping, and CaneSport is your destination for all your Miami Hurricanes holiday shopping needs. And we're talking T-shirts, jerseys, polos, hoodies, hats, flags, decals, magnets, anything you could want for a stocking stuffer or a gift for a significant other, a coworker, a friend, you could find at CaneSport, where they have all sizes for men, women, kids, babies, and they will even dress up your pet. Okay. And you probably heard me say this before. I'm a pet lover. Okay. And the idea of your dog sitting there under the tree with all you guys, or Hanukkah bush, depending on which holiday that you observe, and being left out in the cold without a gift, doesn't sit very well with me, I know. So I would like to see everybody out there take care of their pets, and you can do that at CaneSport as well, where it's more than just a store. It is an experience, and they are at their location at 2655 South University Drive in Davie. That's right next to La Spada Sub Shop. You can get yourself a big sub to eat, and it's right down the shopping plaza from where they were for years. If you can't get to the store right this morning, because you are running out of time, go to caneswear.com, get your order in, expedite it so you can get it in time for Christmas, and don't let anybody miss out on having a Canes Christmas in a week. So CaneSport, 2655 South University Drive in Davie, caneswear.com. Check them out. They will have everything you could possibly need for the Miami Hurricanes fan in your life. All right, let's quickly talk a little bit about some of these defensive recruits. On the defensive tackle position, there currently are 4 commitments. There's Florida decommit Kendall Jackson, who Miami was able to flip, Artavius Jones, Dylan Russell, and Justin Scott, the 5-star out of Chicago that Miami was able to flip. They also got a commitment over the weekend from C.J. Clark. He's an NC State transfer, a guy that gave Matt Lee fits when the teams played last year. So a really good late pickup there out of the transfer portal that Matt Shodell hates in C.J. Clark. I don't know if you call C.J. Clark a free agent or whatever crazy other terminology he uses, but, I think, Matt, is C.J. Clark a free agent?
Yes.
Okay, he's a free agent. He really did give Matt Lee fits, and I think it's a good pickup, a good depth filler for Miami at the defensive tackle position. Miami is loading up on the defensive line in this recruiting class. They have 4 defensive end commitments right now: Marquise Lightfoot, Booker Pickett, Elias Rudolph, and Cole McConaughey. And it's looking like 5-star Armando Blunt from Miami Central is going to commit to Miami on Wednesday and sign with Miami on Wednesday. He's planning a big announcement, so he's not making it prior to signing day. But we like the way that one's trending for the Hurricanes. So I'm not going to say it's necessarily as impactful as what they did on the offensive line last year. I think these are very good players. I don't know that there's anybody there that's going to come in and start as a true freshman the way, say, a Francis Magoa did. But this is a nice foundation for the defensive line position moving forward. Steven, give us your quick synopsis on what Miami's gotten done on the defensive line.
Yeah, well, we knew going into the year that the defensive line was going to be a really, really big focus in this recruiting class, the same way that the offensive line was a really, really big focus in last year's recruiting class. Miami really loaded up with offensive linemen last year. They're really loading up with defensive linemen this year. And I think that Miami is finally to the point where they're starting to get that kind of depth that we were really hoping to see, especially if they're able to go ahead and flip Armando Blunt from Florida State like we currently expect. I think now we're going to get to the point where we can say, yeah, Miami has a great defensive line class, because right now you've got multiple potential interior blue chip defensive tackles. You've got a top 50 edge rusher in Marquise Lightfoot. You've got another 4-star edge rusher in Elias Rudolph. You've got a really versatile defensive end who is both capable of playing as a strong side end and occasionally dropping into coverage in Cole McConaughey, who I think is one of the more underrated prospects in Miami's 2024 class. I see a lot of depth, and I see a lot of guys that Miami is saying, all right, man, even if this guy doesn't hit, we still have a lot of guys behind him. If you sign 10 dudes to a class in your defensive front, and 5 of them end up being studs, and you've got a 50% hit rate, I mean, that at that point, you have 5 defensive linemen who are very viable. And at that point, you're saying, man, I feel pretty good about this class, and I feel pretty good about where things sit. I think Miami has added a lot of very serious depth along the interior. Although I do think that fans should also understand that because we're talking about linemen here, it is going to take some time in order for Miami to really feel the positive effects of this year's recruiting class, because the closer you play to the line of scrimmage and to the center of the ball, the longer it typically takes for you to adjust to the level of physicality and the intensity of playing at this level. It takes a lot longer to develop someone in the trenches than it takes to develop, say, a receiver or a corner or a safety or a running back or someone like that. So I do think Miami's line will be better next year. I don't think that this recruiting class just waves a magic wand and all of a sudden next year Miami's defensive line is going to be absolutely elite. But I do think that this is a really major step in the right direction. There are some guys in this defensive line class who I think we are going to see next year. I 1,000% expect to hear Justin Scott's name called next year. If Armando Blunt does go ahead and sign with Miami, even though he's a reclassified prospect, I do think he has the potential to possibly see the field next year if he's able to go ahead and earn that playing time. I think Marquise Lightfoot 100% has the potential to go ahead and see the field if he's able to earn playing time off the edge. So I think this is the class that Miami needed along the defensive line, but I don't think we're anywhere. I don't think we're anywhere close to fixed, if you want to call it that, along the defensive line, especially going into next season. This is because line is much more of a long-term build.
I totally agree. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't think it's as good as the O-line class was last year, but they've got some good players here that they can work with. And, we'll see where it goes. I mean, I'm not going to, we're not going to sit here and try to, in finite terms, predict what each of these kids is going to do. But it's a solid class of defensive line prospects. Let's leave it at that. And a lot's going to depend on how they are developed over the next year to 2 years, as how quickly they're able to contribute. Okay, linebacker. I'm not going to talk about Adarius Hayes again because Matt wore that subject out. We're expecting a decision from him, obviously, in the next couple days on whether he's going to flip from Florida. Miami does have a solid commitment from Cam Pruitt. He's an Alabama linebacker prospect, guy that really has been rock solid to Miami from very much through this entire cycle, and we don't expect that to change on signing day. Like Miami's loaded up on the defensive front, they've also loaded up on the defensive backfield. Right now, they're sitting on 6 commits, with 2 more sitting on the fence that we think will probably happen. So that's certainly fortification. At the safety position, Savion Riley, Dylan Day, Isaiah Thomas, Saquon Patterson. And you guys can get to know these guys in detail on our website. We've got stories on all of them that have been written recently. We have databases, videos. Go on our CaneSport.com website, check them all out, and get to know them a little bit better here over the next couple of days before we get to signing day on Wednesday. And then at cornerback, they've got commits from Romanasa Frederic and Ryan Mack. And then they are waiting on Xavier Lucas, who's a Wisconsin commit from Fort Lauderdale American Heritage, and Zay Mincy, cornerback, maybe even a safety prospect out of Daytona, waiting to see what he is going to do. And then Miami's got its kicker of the future in this class, a kid by the name of Abram Murray, a very rock-solid kicking prospect. So to sum it all up, pretty solid recruiting class. It's looking like it could finish, if not in the top 5 in the country, certainly very close. They didn't get everybody they wanted. Nobody ever does. Absolutely, we're shooting for the moon, especially at the defensive line position. They had a lot of disappointments in there along the way. But all in all, Matt and Steven, I think that being happy is part of the tradition of National Signing Day. I mean, you're supposed to be happy on that day. You're supposed to be excited about the new guys coming into your program. And the reality is, if they could find 6 starters out of this class, they're doing well. So everybody doesn't have to hit. Everybody will not hit. But all in all, I'll ask each of you independently to sum it up. Steven, starting with you, your just general thoughts on the class as a collective unit.
Man, signing day, it's a lot like draft day in the NFL. There's just reason for optimism with everyone, because regardless of which guys you weren't able to get or which guys you did get, you're always going to be kind of optimistic that, hey, man, this is a new batch of guys. We're turning over a new leaf. This is going to be the next chapter of Miami Hurricanes. And there's always going to be that optimism of, man, what if this class really does end up doing something special? What if this class, really does live up to the hype? Or what if it supersedes expectations? There's always going to be that room for optimism, especially with coaching staffs, because coaching staffs on signing day, they're able to look and they're able to say, all right, we got our guys. These are the guys we ultimately decided to take. We've got faith in them. Let's go ahead and rock with them. And I think that this is going to be a good class. I think this is going to be a really good class. And Cristobal, I mean, he took a lot of flack in the spring and in the summer for not having a bevy of blue chip commits. Especially early on, whenever a lot of the 3-star guys were actually pledging before some of the 4 and 5-star guys were making their announcements. But right now, this is a class that is shaping out to be very, very good. This class has very real talent. Miami's going to stack back-to-back top 10 recruiting classes. That's something that hasn't been done in a while. And man, I'm telling you, that really is the level of recruiting that's required to win a national championship, to compete for ACC titles, to compete for national titles. I mean, you look at the level of talent in the college football playoff this year. All of these teams have very real talent. Now, certainly Washington, may not have the same number of 4 stars and 5 stars that Texas or Alabama does. But I mean, you see the teams that are, playing at or near the top of college football every year. And it's these teams that load up their recruiting classes year after year after year after year. And I mean, credit to Mario, man. He's taking that step forward. He came to this school with his reputation of being an ace recruiter. And, there was a lot of skepticism at a lot of points this year, but it absolutely looks like he is going to be able to go ahead and pull off another elite class.
Gary's on mute.
He is on mute. Talk anyway, Matt.
What he said is, Matt, you're my hero, and you're so optimistic all the time. So
no, I just said Matt Shodell. I did put myself on mute for a minute. I forgot.
I mean, Gary, when you have flatulence, you got to remember to put yourself back out of mute so you can speak again. But what I was going to say is, it's nice to get great recruiting classes. Like, there's no substitution for talent. You can be a bad coach and a bad game day coach, a bad coach even in practice. If you have more talent than everyone else, like, you're still going to win a heck of a lot of games. But with that said, I always try to look at the bigger picture because I'm just weird like that. And I really think, this recruiting class is not going to show up. I don't know what Gary said, 5 starters out of this recruiting class this year. I don't know what he's talking about. But
no, I didn't say year one. I said you need to get essentially 5 or 6 really knockout players out of each recruiting class. If you do that,
you're not talking starters. You're talking about like all ACC first team.
I'm talking about quality starters. 5
all ACC first team guys. Yeah, that'd be great. But the thing that the dark cloud that is hanging over this whole thing is that Mario has to win next year. Like, you can't go 5-7, 7-7, or whatever happens at the end of this year. And with what happened this year and the way it looked, and then have a bad offense again next year, potentially lose more games next year, and expect that, okay, well, we put back-to-back recruiting classes together, so everything's going to be great. Like, this is it. You can't have 3 7-7 or worse years, so to speak, at Miami and expect that fans are going to just be like, okay, next year. Like, this is it. And I predicted 10 wins for next year. So it's nice to have a great recruiting class. But, like, it's more important they win 10 games next year, because if they don't win 10 games next year, the bottom's going to fall out of this thing. Well, I shouldn't say 10. They could win 9. But if you win 8 or less next year, the bottom's going to fall out. It doesn't matter how many great recruits you have, because the disaster of this whole freaking system is you can be the best recruiter in the world, but those guys can leave any freaking time they want now. And if they feel like the fans are being negative and the program's going in the wrong direction, and, hey, this other program looks like they need a starter and they're really good, and I want to win games, which they all do. Like, that's the disaster. So Miami has to win now. So yeah, recruiting's great for 2 or 3 years from now, which is fantastic. Fans should celebrate that. But, like, the focus needs to be on the portal. And so far the portal's fine. Like, I don't want them to overload in the portal, but I only want free agents in the portal this cycle. You cannot afford to miss in the portal. Like, you see what Florida State did. Imagine if half those Florida State guys that were starters were just so guys. They got starters that were difference makers in the portal. And when you look at the team last year and the year before, like, Mario does not have a lot of talent coming back next year. And he's got 30 freshmen from last year. He's bringing in another 30 freshmen this year. You're going to have 60 out of 85 players being really, really inexperienced. And yeah, I get it that a bunch of freshmen started this year or played this year, a handful to 10 guys total. But, like, those aren't going to be your big playmakers. So I don't know how you get to 10 wins next year with a bunch of freshmen and redshirt freshmen or true sophomores. I don't know how you do it without the free agents. And that's why Cam Ward is so freaking important. That's why Mario will wait until the day before kickoff next year if Cam Ward still has a chance to come here, because that's the guy. I know people love Will Howard. Let me tell you something, Will Howard. They were fine with him leaving Kansas State. You find a Kansas State fan, there's 4 of them. If you find one of those 4 Kansas State fans out there in the world, they will tell you, we don't have a problem with Will Howard leaving. He had interception problems. He didn't win games except for 1 season. He struggled. He was inconsistent. Everything that you heard here about Tyler Van Dyke, you'll hear from those guys turning the ball over. And yeah, he's a more mobile Tyler Van Dyke to me. Cam Ward is, I think, as my son would say, I don't know how they put it, is him. They say so-and-so is him. Like, Cam Ward is him. Whatever the hell that means. I don't know. That's what my kids say. That's who you got to get. They get him. They get to 10 wins. Then these recruits develop, and then you're rolling. You get 10 wins next year, playoffs the following year, and then you're gone. You're up. You're in the stratosphere. That's what has to happen. And the only thing that can derail it is having a bad season in 2024. They have to avoid that, like rotten stone crabs dying in your pots. And like, that's it, man. You got to avoid it, and then we're good. But that's it. That's the most important thing. Win next year, period. Yeah. I don't know why we're talking about recruiting, because that's all that matters.
Unfortunately, I still see a long path ahead still to get there. And,
there's not enough time left for patience and money. I'm sorry. You're living in a fantasy land.
I know. I am a little surprised at the lack of instant impact transfer portal guys that I'm seeing right now in this cycle. Maybe there'll be more after bowl games and in the coming weeks. I don't see a lot. We're looking at Cam Ward. I think the other guys that are being brought in are roster fillers, depth fillers. Obviously Zach Carpenter figures to be a center. I'm not sure he's going to be as good as Matt Lee. We will see. But I think there's still a ways to go here in building this roster to a championship level. So, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But we just crossed over the 1 hour mark for this morning. So I think we've reached our statute of limitations. We will be talking more about this recruiting class in the next couple of days. We will see how these additions come into it in the coming hours. So stay tuned to that at CaneSport.com. If you like this show, like this channel, and you're on YouTube right now, hit your subscribe and like buttons. It helps us with the algorithms at YouTube and growing our audience. Like I said, if you're not yet a subscriber to CaneSport.com, please come join our community of fans. We do everything that we can do every single day to enhance your fan experience, and your subscriptions allow us to do that. So please come on over and join our website. And beyond that, we thank you so much for starting out your day with us. For Stephen Wagner and Matt Shodell, I'm Gary Ferman. We will see you again next time, everybody.